Good evening, Fräulein. Welcome to the Action Lead. My name is Owen, and tonight I am joined by the usual top men. I got Joe and Jerva from Action Flicks, J-Man, Sean, and Stephen. Howdy, gents.
Hello.
And tonight we're going to be celebrating 40 years of the world's greatest archaeologist, Indiana Jones. So, I can't believe it's 40 years already. I mean, I used to watch this once a month growing up. It's just one of my all-time favorite movies, or Raiders particularly, and one of my favorite franchises. So I'm going to pick somebody randomly to talk about it. Stephen.
Yes.
Your thoughts on Raiders of the Lost Ark. Go.
Well, I mean, my wallet always does my talking for me, and this is what I just picked up last week.
4K?
The 4K. Just if you guys are into physical media, this is one of those ones. Let me see if I can even get it out here. It's one of these things where it unfolds. You get a map that basically tells you gotta unfold it, where Indiana Jones has been.
Nice.
And then on the back is the posters.
Sweet.
That's cool. That's okay. Raiders of the Lost Ark. The first movie I ever saw in the theater is The Fox and the Hound. I don't have any recollection of watching that movie. My first recollection of watching a movie in the theater is Raiders of the Lost Ark. My parents took me to Ponderosa, which, if you live in Canada, no longer exists. They had the little placemat, which was Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then I went, and the person who went with us was so late that we had to get a seat in the very front row. So there I was, 4 years old, sitting there in my seat, and this big goddamn boulder comes rolling out at Indiana Jones, and I started backpedaling my ass off. Right? This movie, like, I went back, you know, my parents loved it so much. We went back. My mother swears we went back 3 times to see it. It defined movies for me, you could say, because it's my first recollection of a movie. It is probably closest to a perfect movie you can find between cinematography, score, pacing, action, performance. Like, it's the whole 9 yards. On 4K, it looks literally like it was shot yesterday. It is like so crisp that if you guys don't have a 4K player and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy a 4K player, what should I use? What should be my first purchase? It should be this thing, because Raiders looks incredible. Literally, I have nothing bad to say about Raiders of the Lost Ark. It is like my second favorite movie of all time. The only thing that beats is Inherit the Wind. So it's my favorite action movie of all time. And literally, I think it defined so many young moviegoers' lives. People, I think it was in the Legends of Tomorrow where the guy, one of the characters said, without Indiana Jones, I wouldn't have been a historian. And J-Man has his own story about that, which he'll share. But like, I can't say enough about this. This is like one of the greatest movie landmarks ever done, and like, we don't get these anymore, unfortunately, so we have to cherish the ones we did get.
All right, Mr. Jerva, over to you.
Stephen said it all. I mean, I was 7, 1981. So yeah, my first cinematic experience was Star Wars, so it was still Harrison Ford. So I was a big fan of, that and Empire had already come out. So, I mean, I pretty much knew who Harrison Ford was because, even though I was 7, I was old enough. And I remember going to see Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time, and it was just totally different from Star Wars. And I was like, same guy, but look what he's doing now. And then and actually, I'm not gonna lie, but I saw for the first time, and it was kind of scary, for a 7-year-old, especially the beginning, when they're traipsing through the jungles and like you see all the skeletons and bodies and everything, it's kind of alarming, but I totally got into it. And like Stephen said, it's got to be one of, if not the best, one of the best action movies ever made. And Harrison Ford, like, he could do no wrong to me at the time. You know, like I said, he was Han Solo, and Han Solo was my favorite character. So when I saw that he was going to be in this movie, and my dad's like, "You want to go see it?" I'm like, "Yep." So I went to see it, and like I think I saw it 5 times in the theater before it left, and and then once it came on VHS, I immediately had to have it, and I'm not at home. If I was at home, I'd show you my collection. It's not the 4K. I haven't gotten the 4K, but I got the complete collection on Blu-ray, and like I break it. You guys all know those movies. You break them out like every so often. You never get sick of them. Well, this is one of them. I mean, all of them. I mean, even we'll get into the other movies later, but this is the quintessential adventure movie, and Harrison Ford is the quintessential action hero in this movie, and he just sells it, and the whole cast sells it. Steven Spielberg, could do no wrong, and John Williams score. Enough said about that. It's iconic. You hear it, and how many movies like you hear a score, and it's like, yep, I know what that movie, I know what that's from. So it's just it's terrific, and in every sense of the word.
I actually heard some idiot say on some website, I can't remember what the website it was. This is why I don't allow comments on the site, because they just make me angry. But this guy actually said, well, I hope with the next Indiana Jones music they get rid of that awful music for the next movie. And I was like,
he must have been joking, because that's like literally impossible.
Yeah,
that can't be. Yeah.
People just say that to get a reaction. That's
I think they did. Yeah. Probably a bot. Yeah. Sean, what are your thoughts?
So I was 3 like Steve, but I didn't go to see it in the theater. I mean, like most people probably my age, we saw it on TV in those extra long, like 3-hour formats, like either starting at 7 or starting at 8 and going till 11 and like begging your parents to stay up. Raiders of the Lost Ark is to me, it defines adventure. It defined adventure when I was a kid. When I thought of adventure, I thought of like Indiana Jones style adventure. And there are a whole bunch of movies in that whole genre of like adventuring in the jungle and stuff. I know that it came before Raiders, but everything after Raiders is basically aping Raiders. Even the stuff that came before, like King Solomon's Mines and stuff like that. I just saw the 2018 Tomb Raider with Alicia Vikander. Is that? And that basically takes the formula from Raiders. It's like, the bad guy can't get into the tomb without the hero. The hero does all the stuff. Once they get in there, there's something that kills them all, and they and they have to prevent it from getting outside, and then she has to rescue someone, be it like a Marion type character or whatever. It's her father. It's the same thing. And that thing was made 3 years ago. So so it's super influential. It's one of the things that defined my childhood. I have like my old beat up Raiders comics, my childhood ones. I would read this, and then I would read this in my bedroom, and then I'd head downstairs and watch it on VHS. Or if I knew it was on TV, I'd read the comic first, and then I'd go watch on TV. It's super influential. I think even writers and newer generations are influenced by it without knowing it, and they like stuff from it, like Uncharted, etc., without knowing where it really comes from. And I can't say enough good things about Raiders. I never really get tired of it, like other movies from my childhood. Sometimes I'm like, I don't really want to watch this now, but Raiders has so many interesting things in it, like that chase scene where he's like, he's dangling from the car and everything. It's impossible to duplicate. We could talk about part 5 later, but
we'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, over to you, J-Man, because I also want you to mention I can't remember if you mentioned it on the podcast before, or I don't know if it was our show, but your response to Amy Farrah Fowler in The Big Bang Theory when she talks about Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're gonna talk about that. Yeah. I have a lot of things with Indiana Jones. He was my favorite character. Yes. I would dress up as Indiana Jones. I'd make my own clothes. I use my mom's old purse as a bag. I'd use my skipping rope for a whip, and I'd set up the entire apartment. And I couldn't step on the floor, so I could only jump onto couches that would link and tables. And I set up this little glass thing at the end, so I could grab that and switch with the bag and all that. But I saw. This is very weird, and Sean might be able to help me out on this. I went to a friend's place for his birthday, His name was Jonathan, so he's long gone. I don't know him anymore. And I went to his place for a birthday party, and his birthday parties were like the damn best. Like you wanted to be invited. And all of a sudden, they put a stop to the shenanigans, and they pulled down this huge screen, started up a projector, and it was freaking Raiders of the Lost Ark on so now it wasn't the whole film or something.
No.
I'm not sure.
They used to do that. It was like 5-minute snippets.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the first time I've ever seen any of this because my mom is like a square. She doesn't like. She likes drama movies. That's it. I never went to the theater for anything unless I begged my grandfather to take me. So I would have to know about it. I'm a self-made nerd. Anyway, so I saw this projector and I'd see the little clips and I saw the snake where he fell in the Well of the Souls and then the snake comes up. You're like, oh shit! And I was like, this is like the greatest thing ever. So then, Temple of Doom, which we'll talk about. Temple of Doom was the first movie I ever rented, and I saw that first. So after I saw Temple of Doom, I then because I didn't know it wasn't the same thing.
All right.
I thought that this was that movie. So I'm like, well, where is that snake pit? And then I realized, oh, this is not the same movie. And then I found Raiders. So I saw Raiders second, which is why Temple of Doom is going to be, spoilers, my favorite. But Raiders is 10 out of 10. I understand it comes from all of the serials, just like Star Wars. George Lucas, big fan of all these serials. So am I, right? As we know. So it's great that it's sort of like the perfect serial all combined into like a 2-hour movie that just has every good thing from the serials and nothing of the bad stuff, like no repetitive stuff or no where they replay a chapter or something weird like that. It's all of the good stuff put together in one movie. The score is crazy. I like everything that happens. I had a G.I. Joe. I don't know what the G.I. Joe vehicle was, but it was like a long one with missiles on it. And I would have a horse and I have a guy. There's a guy, Crocmaster came with a whip. And then I used Dial Tone, I think was the guy I used. He would hold the whip and I pretend he was Indiana Jones. And I would reenact the entire Ark scene with him on the horse, jumping from car to car. And him getting dragged. I literally reenacted the entire thing. I wanted to be an archaeologist in grade 7. When we did our career thing, I said, I got to be an archaeologist. I had to explain it to the class. They didn't know what it was. And my grade 7 teacher was like, can you explain what it was? So I just said, it's Indiana Jones. They're like, oh, yeah. And then my 7th grade teacher was like, well, archaeologists don't actually fight Nazis, though. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm good with that part. I don't need to fight Nazis or whatever. But I guess we could talk about the Raiders, Amy Farrah Fowler thing. That was like the last episode I watched of Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
It pissed me right the F off. Bad. Like anger level through the roof. It pissed me right off because, like, first of all, Sheldon should have defended that more. He just sat there like a goof. Amy doesn't know anything about anything. The movie's called Raiders of the Lost Ark. You're just watching everybody. You're following the story through Indiana Jones, but he's not a superhero. He's not there to save the world at the end. He's an archaeologist. He's trying to get the Ark. And Sean pointed this out, and we all know this. It's like his intelligence is the one that says, okay, we have to keep our eyes closed. We have to and it's like he figures this stuff out, right? It's like he has respect for these items. Renee Belloc and the Nazis and all them don't have any respect for any of this stuff. He survives because he is smart, and then he takes the Ark back. What are they talking about? Like, it's not like he didn't do anything. I just don't understand it. It pissed me off. And then I realized that the writers of that show actually didn't understand the movie themselves, because if they did, they would have had the character of Sheldon defend it more.
Yeah.
So
well, the problem is that became a big hipster reaction to Raiders, right? But here's the thing. In Raiders, like he's the only one that knows how to get the Ark. I mean, really, the Nazis wouldn't get it anyways because they're digging in the wrong place and they never would have figured
out. Digging in the wrong place.
Yeah. So he finds it, and also at the end, it's melted everyone's face off and everything, and it's just sitting there, and anyone else can pick it up and use it like dangerously, right? Yeah, he's the one who retrieves it, and he does so resourcefully because he knows the Bible, he knows his mythology, and so he knows his religion, and so he knows not to behold God in human eyes, right? So then he closes his eyes, tells Marion to do so. So he's still a hero that retrieves the Ark. My thing is that because so we'll get into the sequels, but I guess, but after Temple of Doom. I guess they decided to just cling on to the formula of Raiders, and so they did that for Last Crusade, they did it for Kingdom of Crystal Skull, and you can probably maybe make that case for those two movies, especially Crystal Skull. Crystal Skull, the aliens just like mop up when they're done and they take off. It's like it's craziness, right? But because those movies to me were an imperfect facsimile of Raiders, you could probably make that case for those movies, but not Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Indiana Jones fan.
Yeah,
Like
well,
every book.
I've saw all the books.
yeah.
Nice.
And then this is just out just now,
Oh, cool.
which I was reading about and finding out some interesting facts about it. Like his original name was Indiana Smith. George Lucas was going to call him, and then Spielberg was like, "No, I think we'll call him Jones." And he was like, "Oh, that's much better." So, and then it just all clicked. But one of my favorite aspects of Raiders of the Lost Ark and why I love it so much is Ronald Lacey as Toad. With the black hair and the glasses, the "Good evening, Fraulein" guy.
Yeah.
But like everything he says, like even now, I still say it. I quote him all the time. Like if Ed is like gonna say something, it's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna take the garbage out or something." I'm like, "Yes, I know you feel." Just do it all the time. And then I also love the "we are not thirsty." And there's just so many like great lines. Like every line is memorable in it. The dialogue, the script is like so sharp. It's as much as I enjoyed seeing Tom Selleck doing the screen test for it. I was like, man, it's Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. What does everybody think of the fact that Harrison Ford doesn't want anyone else to play Indiana Jones? Like he's like, when I'm done, that's it. Nobody else is going to be replacing me, because Chris Pratt was rumored to replace him and everything. Could you accept that, or does it have to be him?
Well, you remember there was the rumor that when Crystal Skulls came out, that Shia LaBeouf was going to take over the.
Oh God.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I'm totally 100% on board with that. Yeah. They are making this fifth movie, but like, yeah, they do not reboot it, do not remake it. It doesn't need to be.
No.
Yeah.
Enough said.
I agree.
Yeah.
So my friend here also agrees that I mean, Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones to so many people. This isn't like a book like James Bond, where like he's already been recast. I'll talk about what my hopes are for the fifth movie, as well as they are. But I also agree. Like, just don't bother. Let this one. Let one thing in Hollywood lie and just let it be awesome and just let it go. I would love that.
Yeah.
What about young Indiana Jones and all that stuff? Because even in part 3, he was his younger self.
Yeah, and
was
his younger
someone else.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm weird on like I usually like if it's not an existing character from a comic book or from another source, and this is an original character that was created originally on screen with Harrison Ford becoming that character, I usually say don't recast him and let it be. But it has to be what you want. Like, on the one hand, do you want more Indiana Jones movies? If you do you then say Indiana Jones needs to be in this time period, in the period of the serials, whatever, like 30s, 40s? Like, do you want to see him in the 60s? Like, I don't even know what movie. I don't know where this movie's going to be now. 60s or 60s, I guess, because last one was 50s.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you think that Indiana Jones should not even go past into the 50s? And if you say yes to that and you want more Indiana Jones, you have to recast that character. Or if you're willing to say, you know what, those 3 films, that was enough for me. It's good enough. I'm done. I don't ever want to see more of it. It's sort of, everyone has to make up their own mind. I'm willing to accept anything if I like it, but if I don't like it, then I'm going to complain about it, just like everybody else on the internet.
They can go forward with it, but the thing is, I think like 1, 2, and 3 are the real Indiana Jones movies to me. I tried rewatching that 4th one, and it's better than I remember it, but it's still forced. I mean, they're trying to swap out the Nazis for the commies, USSR, and it doesn't work because they're not the same thing, and they're supposed to be like irredeemable bad guys, but they're commies. I don't It's not. They didn't firebomb London. They didn't,
Right.
the cost. It's not the same thing. It's just, it's forced. I think, yes, if you want more Indiana Jones, it has to be in the time of World War II, around there, and you would have to recast. My only concern is we're dealing with generations of filmmakers and generations of audiences that don't understand the roots of Indiana Jones, and it's going to look like a totally different. It's going to look like Tomb Raider 2018. It's not going to look like the fun and adventure and frolicking of the first 3 Indiana Jones movies. It's not going to have the boisterous music and something happens every 30 seconds and the fun fight choreography and wonder of it all. It's not going to have that. So I don't even know if this part 5 is going to have that, but if a new filmmaker comes in and they do a reboot with a or even just like a more of the series with a recast, it's not going to be your tip. I'm just warning you right now. It's not going to be Indiana Jones as you know it or remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still a serial character. The point is that because it's a serial, in serials it was 15-minute chapters. So every 15 minutes, some actiony thing happens, some crazy thing. Then there's different locations. They move to different. Like, they don't understand those roots. They're just like, oh, Indiana Jones is like an adventure guy. Okay, let's have him go on this. It's like, no, but that's not what that is actually.
And everything has to be explained. Like, there has to be an origin, like, Indiana Jones origins or whatever.
Right.
He's a kid and he's like, oh, this whip, they kind of did that in the beginning of part 3, but yeah.
Which we'll get to, and my thoughts might not be popular. But but yeah, they've forgotten that. And even like when Alan Quatermain, which really way predates Indiana Jones big time, that character, he's a hunter and all that. But when they brought those movies out, they were fashioning them over after Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
I love those two movies. I love King Solomon.
The knockoffs were a lot of fun, like Bloodstone's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's a great movie,
Yeah. And like the Jewel of the Nile stuff.
Jewel of the Nile's great too, Romance in the Stone.
Yeah.
But
I love the coat hanger scene. When he's like, you're like, what the hell is this? Like nunchucks or something?
It's a 3-section staff.
1941, no? They used it there and no one cared. And then they used it in Raiders and there was this big
1941 is the Spielberg movie no one talks about.
I've never seen it. I think it's like the only Spielberg film I haven't seen.
I think Steve gave it to me, didn't he?
Yeah. I got to
it
at some point. And I like 1941. The Spielberg movies I haven't seen are like the cover purple and Always, and like that weird middle period he had between
Always is good.
Park
and E.T. I like Always. Yeah.
Which one? Always?
Always, I liked Always. I haven't seen The Color Purple. I haven't seen. Didn't you do Empire of the Sun?
That's him. No,
maybe
with Christian Bale. I think he directed that. I haven't seen that either. But Raiders has so many like great scenes. Like, it's still my favorite because it has the best action scenes of the series. But we'll talk about that later once we've gone through all of them. I want to go over like what the best and worst action scenes are. But for me, like the truck chase is amazing, as we mentioned. But also that opening scene, we can't stress enough that it's maybe the greatest opening scene of all time, or certainly way up there.
Yeah.
Lucasfilm does the best spook houses in the movies. Like, it's like that, Jabba the Hutt's palace, Temple of Doom. Like, in terms of creating a great atmosphere and like fun, like spooky places. It's like that opening temple in Raiders is awesome. And I reread that thing over and over in the comics, but because it's the same kind of thing. But
and Alfred Molina is the other guy. Like, that's crazy when you think.
You throw me the idol, I throw you the whip.
Adios.
Adios, Vito. Oh God, it's like that and Return of the Jedi are the two movies where I can just say like every line while I'm watching it. It's just I just know every line of dialogue because I've seen it so many times. But love it, and it's funny. Like, for most of it, like, oh, it's a really fun adventure yarn or whatever. And in that final scene, it becomes a horror movie with the faces melting and the ghosts going and everything. You're like, what the hell is this? This is amazing. And it just really sort of transforms it. And like, even now, you watch it and the scene is still horrifying with the way the faces like come apart. How it's done, whatever, but it still looks great. And it's really satisfying deaths for all the bad guys.
that's how hardcore PG movies were back then.
Yeah.
Like that. It's like wow. I mean, it's like that's like almost R-rated stuff you're looking at. I mean, if not, I mean that ending. I mean, you see that in R-rated horror movies, but here it is in a PG action movie.
Yeah.
Well, the crazy thing is me being 4 years old, and I'm sure when my parents saw that scene, they were sort of like, like looking at me, but it didn't affect me because I was just like, okay, their faces melted off. That's fine. I think like the scene that really gets me though is actually not the face melting. It's the two of them standing there tied to the post and the flames going around them. And Marion's, you can tell she wants to open her eyes to see what the hell, because she can hear all the carnage, and it almost sounds like they're in pain. And he's like, no, you can't open your eyes. And it's like, it's one of those things where even though the main characters are not really in mortal danger, because it's just a hair from them, the same thing happening to them. So I mean, that to me is like, that scene is crazy. And then like, I also like, I didn't notice this until recently, is that, the arc would, you see the arc would go up with the fire, and it's just like spinning there, and then it comes down, and it's like, God, I hope no one else opens that thing.
Have you tried the trick of, I do this on movies where they have to hold their breath.
Yeah.
And then you try to hold your breath as long as the character in the movie. Have you tried closing your eyes the entire time just to see if you could keep them closed the entire time? You should try that. Good experiment.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet. I can't do the holding breath. There was that movie, Let the Right One In, the Swedish one.
Yeah.
That kid was underwater for like 5 minutes. I swear to God. I'm like, he was dead. There's no way. But anyhow.
Yeah, I love. I think it was only like a few years ago. Whenever I noticed that at the end, after they've all died and the Ark is there, and then Indy and Marion are free, and I thought, oh, God cut them free. And I sort of, he intervened and saved them because they didn't look at what they're not supposed to look at. Then he freed them and said, "Okay, you're free to go." And I thought that was awesome. And then I know we've already talked about the score, but the music is so good. But whenever the skulls appear and the ghosts change into skulls, and it turns into like horror movie music, it's like psycho music or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely love it. And we can continue until we mention Paul Freeman as Belloc. How great is he?
Yeah, Paul Freeman is excellent. He's the, you sort of hate him a lot because he knows that this stuff is like, he's not in it for the love of anything. He's in it he's literally in it for the gain, right? Like, he's sort of a bit like what I equate Indiana Jones is from Temple of Doom. More shady, obviously, but he's sort of like, he has no respect for it, but he knows what it is, and he knows it's important and powerful, but he only cares about the power of it. He doesn't really care about, the grandeur or anything like that. He only understands it. It's like that old saying goes, a cynic knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. And he's like that. He knows that he could get a great price for the Ark, but he doesn't care what the value of it actually is, what it means.
I liked Rene Belloc. I like all of his dialogue. These take this, bury it in the sand for 1,000 years, it becomes priceless.
Yeah.
It's like I bought it at a local pawn shop. All that stuff. I like the fact that he's working with the Nazis, but he kind of doesn't care about the Nazis either. He's always in it for himself, which is great. Yeah. I think he does. He wants the power of the Ark and maybe some fortune and glory and all that with it as well. But we never got, which is good. I'm glad we didn't. We never got too much into his reasoning for things. But I love the scene where Indy's going to blow it up, and he's like, "Yeah, go ahead, buddy, take your shot." Because that's not happening.
Yeah.
And he's like, you and I are passing through history. This is history. And it's like, he's awesome. And I like that they just didn't have it there's the Nazi guys, there is the Nazi presence or whatever, but he's still sort of the main bad guy, I guess. Yeah. It's weird. It's there's just, because again, he's one of the raiders. There's so many people after this thing.
He's the least threatening bad guy, though. It's funny, Tote and the Nazis are the threatening guys, and he's almost like the brains of the operation.
Yeah. And one thing we didn't mention was I like when characters go to areas and then they meet up with guys. So it's like he goes and it's like, oh yeah, Sala, you know, yeah, and you're like, oh yeah, who's this guy? And then it's like, and then that guy's got like a whole backstory, you know what I mean, that we don't know, but it's like, oh, I've got all these kids and everything, and it's like, and then he like teams up with that guy, and I like, and even the boat captain, that
you
guy
never used him again.
They never used him again, right?
Kanga or something, is that his name?
Yeah, I don't know. But I like the idea that there's like connections, and it's like you see the map, you see where he lands, and then he meets up with someone who's helping him out along the way. I really like this. Like, that's like a serial thing too. You introduce a character, comes in, helps out a little bit, and then they go away or whatever. It's cool. Like all that little intricacies, Marcus, you know, and that's all kind of
so great.
That's all that stuff is really cool too.
Yeah, a few years ago, me, Ed, and Alex, we got we got to meet John Rhys Davies, and we went to his hotel room at the Fairmont Hotel, and had this like bottle of wine ready with a napkin wrapped around him, and a total like English gent, and we sat there and we talked to him for about like an hour and a half before we actually interviewed him, and then the interview ended up being like 2-3 hours or something like that. We talked everything, and it was so cool, and it's quite it can be sort of quite an intimidating character. I mean, I was sort of quite new to interviewing people then, so I was sort of like terrified. But no, I mean, he was an absolute gent and like so nice to us, and I never thought I would get to meet him. And then I got to meet Marion as well, Karen Allen. Remember, she was at the Fan Expo a few years ago. Got a photo taken with her and chat with her, and I was like, oh, Marion is one of my favorite characters. It's too bad there was no strong female characters in movies back in the day, because Marion was a fantastic character. I mean, she was vulnerable, but she's an ass kicker. I mean, she's throwing punches and everything else, and she's just a great character. She can drink
down to the table and everything. That's awesome.
One of my favorite drinking scenes in any movie is that one where the guy just like falls back drunk. I mean, he just looks genuinely drunk. It's such a great scene.
And I love when she's holding the medallion out in the howling cold, and she's like, "I'm your goddamn partner."
I love when Tote picks it up and it's like roasting hot, and he's like,
that was genius too, because that's how he got the imprint. That's how they found.
And at the other side, then you have to remove some to honor that god or whatever, right? So
Let's remove one cadet.
Because they're digging in the wrong place.
The movie literally put me off dates. Dates.
It took me a while to eat dates. Actually, after I watched that, my mother's like, "Do you want date squares?" I'm like,
who uses a monkey to infiltrate, man? That's awesome.
That's one of the best characters as well. What a great monkey.
Like that side character, that weird angle, right? Again, that's just like, you could just see that in a serial, like kind of happening. Like, you have to have a certain mentality to create these kinds of movies, and it's just gone. That's why you have these rip-off artists like Mr. Abrams and whatever, who like try to do these things and they love it, but they don't really understand it. They're just like, oh, I liked it, so it's a lot of cool stuff happening. It's like, yeah, but you're not really getting it.
Yeah, it's all unearned and weird.
You know what's cool? Is the Lost Journal of Indiana Jones. Has anybody seen that?
Wow. Nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I got to move forward here. So, it's got what's like cool artwork and things like that, and wrong way. Maps and stuff like that, and it's just like a real journal. So if you're a fan of the character, then it's awesome. All right, so that's enough on Raiders. Now I'm going to let you start off this one, J-Man, because I know this is your favorite indie movie. So
yes, I love it.
You have the con.
Temple of Doom. Well, I saw Temple of Doom first. It was the first movie I rented. Watched it, loved it. I thought it was like just the greatest thing ever. And it's still, both Raiders and Temple are in my top, like, let's say 20 films of all time. I have the 2 read-alongs with the cassette tapes. Remember those read-along books or whatever, you flip the page. Temple of Doom, I literally like think every second of that movie is awesome, because just like a serial, every so often something new is introduced. That entire beginning has nothing to do with anything. It's just like this cool action scene, with the Chinese guys running around and like, trying to get the antidote, the diamond. And this is where he's like a fortune and glory guy, because he's willing to trade the last remains of this emperor, which are super sacred, for like a diamond. right? So it's like that's where Indiana Jones literally doesn't care. This is an origin story before they were called origin stories.
It was a prequel.
It's a prequel. He literally dies, like goes to hell, becomes evil, and then literally is burned, resurrected as a hero. And literally from when he says, he turns, he goes, yeah, all of us. From that moment on, it is the damn best film like ever. I've not seen anything top that. Like from that moment, it's like, we gotta get out of here. It's like, yeah, all of us. And that whole entire sequence is just like 10 out of 10, crazy action. I love the location of going to India. I just thought, like, even the dinner scene, people are like, oh, I was like, oh, this is so creepy and it's so weird. Like they're all being nicey nice, but there's a lot of just sinister stuff going on. I love going into the temple. The temple itself is the best set ever, ripping the heart out. I was just like, holy crap. Like my mind was exploding. I know PG-13. I don't know if it was invented for Temple of Doom.
It is the hardest PG-13 maybe ever.
It was invented. Like Spielberg invented this because he's like, well, I don't want to go to R. So it's like, well, you can't invent ratings. He's like, sure, I can. I'm Steven Spielberg. I'm Steven friggin' Spielberg. I'm going to invent this rating.
Steven F. Spielberg.
Yeah. and like literally, and like Short Round, first kid ever that I saw. Well, he was from the Goonies or whatever. Or was he? He was here first and then Goonies. I can't remember.
Yeah, he must have been that first.
First, yeah. But like, dude, I was like, Short Round is the best, and it's like he's a kid and he kicks ass, and then you're a kid watching it. So usually when I'm a kid watching other kids, I usually don't like it unless the kids are doing something cool that I would consider cool. Most kids in movies didn't until Short Round, where you're like, yeah, this kid's cool, he's got it together. I like Willie Scott. I think she's attractive. I know she's irritating. That's the character. I find it hilarious when she's running around and they're playing cards, and it's like the trouble with her is the noise, And like when he grabs the statue by the boobs and he's like trying to figure out how to open it, she's like, I'm right here. Oh, I love that. And I don't know, it's great.
He sticks his face out. He's like, "We are going to die."
Yeah. He puts his hand up and he goes, "No, the other right. Your other right." That was so gross. The cockroaches. I would never do that scene. I don't think I could ever do that scene with the bugs on me. Forget about it. I could do snakes, but not bugs.
That whole sequence, like with the spikes coming down, is the most Indiana Jones scene ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pure serial. Yeah. It's like, will they escape? And it's just totally like that. Yeah. And this has maybe the most imaginative set pieces of the franchise. You got the minecart chase, which is awesome, and then a bridge scene at the end. And I'm going to be controversial here. I think Mola Ram is the best villain of the franchise. I think he's just a monster. It's terrifying. There's nothing where like, oh, he's okay, where you kind of like Belloc, where he was charming or whatever. This guy's not charming. This guy's going to eat your heart.
And I gotta say this. Yeah, every there's literally a serial thing every time. Like they go off the cliff in the beginning. Will they die? Will they won't? Right? It's like every single thing has something. But the best is when they're on the bridge, and he's like, oh, he puts the stones out to drop. He's like, drop them, Dr. Jones. They will be found. You won't. Oh my God. He literally just said, go ahead, drop it. I don't care. Like, and then he's like, oh crap. And then he's like, when he cuts the rope, you're just like, this is. He goes, he's no nuts. He's crazy. Laura, prepare to meet Kali in hell. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. Like literally every moment of that movie, even now, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening.
No. And John, what do you?
So I saw Temple of Doom in the theater. I must have been 7. And I remember being super hyped for it because I already knew what Raiders was. And it's like, oh, this is the next one. Like, what the hell? And it's like, it's got to be the most colorful and best cinematography of the franchise. And I have to say, it's probably the best score of the franchise, too, because it has all the great stuff from the first one. And also all this great, like the Trek music. And even Short Round's theme is awesome. It's like when it turns into a hero theme where he where he's on the ladder and he kills that one guy, and that's awesome. Anyway, Temple of Doom, I loved it when I was a kid. I remember there was a Muppet Babies episode.
Yes,
I remember that.
It was like one of the guys captures Kermit and Fozzie, and Fozzie's like, I just remember this is a PG-13 fantasy and we can't be here. I love that line, but yeah, it was marketed to kids. I didn't think it was too intense or anything. I thought it was awesome. It's like
I loved it as
you
a
don't
kid.
know what badass is, but but it is badass, right? And I grew up with it. Now there was a time when I was sort of down on the movie. The dialogue is sort of weird at times, like the whole like when you're a lion tamer and he's like, I'm allowing you to come along, like he's trying to rhyme allowing with lion. It's so stupid. There's dumb things like that. The whole dinner scene thing. I mean, when you're brown and you're picked on for smelling like curry or something like that. It's I did get kind of mad at that scene because it's sort of like they're so foreign. Look what they eat, kind of thing. But I know that in the world of Temple of Doom, it's supposed to be that they're eating that because they're turned, they're bad guys. But the only problem with that is that the British guy thinks it's normal, and so does Indy, right? So it's weird, but it's still neat, like the all the weird like gross stuff that they eat and stuff. But yeah, no, it's got to be. It toggles back and forth between this one and Rangers, which one's the best in my mind. When the DVDs came out, I think that was a revelation to a lot of people because it looked even more beautiful than before. There's that whole shot where after the kid returns to the village in the beginning of the movie, Indiana Jones is standing on some sort of knoll or hill or something, and you see these trees in the dark in the background, and they're like lush blues and purples. It's amazing. I didn't notice that on TV when I watched it. It's just it's a cool movie. I think it's underrated. It's the only one that doesn't use the Raiders formula, and I think that makes it even better in that he's a hero of his own agency. He has to retrieve something. He does it. You can't use the Amy Farrah like theory on that film.
Yep.
And they never went back to that formula. They never went back to Indy just doing something because he needs to, not because he has to rescue somebody or whatever. And then there's a sort of ambiguous thing at the end of these movies, usually where it seems that, well, I mean, if you can't escape with that cup out of the cave, then what's the point of this whole adventure kind of thing? But in Temple of Doom, there's no such ambiguity. It's a straightforward, great adventure. He rescues kids. It's badass. It looks beautiful. It's just awesome.
Hey, Mr. Jerva?
Well, going back to what we were talking about before, it was actually this movie and Gremlins is what rose the argument for PG-13 movies. And actually Red Dawn was the first PG-13 movie that came out after that, because I remember this movie came out and I wanted to go see it, and my dad actually at first wasn't going to let me go see it because he had heard how more intense this movie was. So I had to like break him down, and trust me, every day I was talking about this movie. I'm like, can we go see it? Can we go see it? He's like, if I take you to see this movie and you have nightmares, that's the last time I'm going to take you to see any of these types of movies. So what's he do? He breaks down. He takes me to go see it. And I was like, I won't go see it again. I won't go see it again. I mean, I don't want to compare. Okay, I don't want to get shot here, but I'm going to compare this to like the Fast and the Furious, because like the first one, and then each one gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. This one takes Raiders and it's bigger, it's badder, it's more intense. I mean, like I said, and I'm going to agree with you. Mola is the badass villain of the whole series, because this guy, he will step on a baby's neck. I mean, that's how evil this guy is. I mean, like we were talking about the guys in the first one, even in the third one, they're just slime balls. They're just like, they're just like, soldiers and stuff like that. This guy will eat you up and spit you out. He's that bad. And I just remember watching this movie, and I was just like, with all the action set pieces and the mine car race and everything, and then at the end, going back to what J-Man was saying on the bridge, I love that scene. That is probably one of my favorite scenes, because it just shows you how, Indiana Jones is just a man, but he's probably like one of the bravest heroes there is, because he knows he's cornered. He knows, how am I going to get out of this situation? Well, let me start cutting the bridge down. We'll see what happens. We'll just be like cricket. We'll just see what happens. And I just remember watching it, and I was like, this is probably my favorite movie out of the whole series, bar none. I mean, I love it. I loved every minute of it. I mean, did I miss Karen Allen? Yes, I did. Yeah, but Kim Capshaw did good, like J-Man was saying. But I missed Karen Allen in it. That was probably the one biggest thing. But in terms of a sequel, it's like I actually, Raiders is its own movie. That's the original movie. You can't really compare it because that's the one that everything is based off of. But I'd have to say that this is one of those sequels that it didn't surpass the original. I don't want to say that, but it definitely met it on its own terms.
Yep. And Steve?
Yeah, so I saw this one twice in the theater. To John's point, I already knew it was. I agree, it was more intense, and I was down on this movie like Sean was for a while because it wasn't Raiders. It was a far different animal, and I wanted Raiders. Right? It was definitely more intense. As I've gotten older, I appreciate it now a lot more than what I did, to the point that I wish they had continued on in that vein. The scene at the beginning in the Obi-Wan Club is great. I didn't realize this till recently, but the guy he was dealing with, the mobster, was Frank Dukes'
Shiroshi.
sensei from Bloodsport. That's awesome. I love the diamond and the whole confusion trying with the antidote and the diamond and kicking it around in that. I love the scene in the plane when they have to get out, and like there's a lot of lights and darks in that, and like the cinematography is so good. It might actually be better than Raiders, actually, when I think about it, because the differences in locations, the textures of things are way different. Like you have the brightness out in the mountaintop and the waterfall, and then you have like jungle, and then you have the dark mine and the temple and that, and then you're out again into the jungle. It's just like bright, dark, and then inside you got the lights just throwing flames off to like the statues and that. Like the lighting is incredible. The dinner scene I love. I understand that it's not probably it's not an accurate representation of what people in India eat, but I look at Temple and Raiders as both films that are a product of those old serials, and in the old serials there was a lot of racism, from what I can tell. Like I've watched I think it was Batman and Robin, and like the villain was a Chinese guy, and I'm not condoning it, but it is a product of the time. I loved the trap scene. That's probably my favorite scene. I love the spikes come out and it makes the same sound that the chamber did in Empire. It's a thing. So I love that part. And I love to, I wanted this for my office at work. I wanted to hold to stick my hand out, in the fit. Do it now. I love that sort of thing. It's just like, it's my favorite scene. It is damn scary when Indiana Jones turns heel as a wrestling.
Oh yeah,
that is super scary to me, because the only guy, like Willie Scott, God bless her, she's useless. Short Round is cool, but he's just a kid. Indiana Jones is the linchpin of them saving things, and when they take him, I'm like, they're done. Like I don't know how they're going to get out of this. And I hated the Maharaja kid. Like when he was there and he was stabbing the doll, I'm like, someone punched this kid out, man. Like I wanted to beat the hell out of the kid, right? I was so mad at him. The bridge scene, you like when he takes the machete and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then you're like, oh my God, like it's just a wonderful adventure. It's the epitome of the adventure film to me. It's like if you're ever going to teach a kid day one adventure film, that's probably what you're going to show, because it is like everything that you want in an adventure film. The thrills, the chills, the excitement, the minecart race, which you guys have already talked about, like everything. I don't have any criticism for that movie. I mean, for me, it's Raiders and it's Temple here. Like it's like right on the cusp. Yeah, literally, John is like that. I don't like. I love Raiders because it's the first thing I saw, and it was my introduction to that, so it's my fan favorite. But like, I have nothing bad to say about Temple of Doom.
Let me
Yeah,
just
they
say that it's cool that like this is a prequel actually because it takes
Yeah.
place before the Lost Ark. So that's not back then when they were doing sequels, you never really that was really heard of. So I thought
Yeah.
that was kind of cool. How like this is before this happened. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing to do with it also.
And so I technically saw them in order because I saw Temple first. So to me, it's like this is natural progression. Now he's a good guy, and now I know why the government wants to hire him and all that. Right?
Yeah, the opening scene is to Temple of Doom is just like a nod to James Bond because he's got the tuxedo and everything on, a Diamonds Are Forever outfit, and thus the diamond in the opening scene. And then it was Lao Che, isn't that his name? Lao Che, yeah.
Lao
He's
Che,
like, goodbye, Dr. Jones. It's goodbye, Mr. Bond. It's like a kind of totally Blofeld kind of moment. Love that opening scene. That's great. Also, the action scene that nobody has been talking about though is the conveyor belt fight where the guy gets like sucked under the conveyor belt. He's like, die, die! He gets like dragged under, gets squished. And I was like, oh hell yeah! I mean, it's a lot more brutal than Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, I remember anytime you watch it, like, how did this get a PG-13 rating? I mean,
they're whipping kids. They're hitting kids.
And then even Indy punches Short Round, you're like, pimp slaps him across the
This was PG. This was the argument for PG-13. This is Gremlins. That summer, those two movies came out, and that's when they were like, we got to do something, because people were complaining about it. So this is one of the movies that formed the PG-13 rating.
Yeah, but Spielberg was trying to argue that it was between a PG and an R, and it wasn't. It was R.
Listen, we're everybody's fine. It's fine. Come walk it off, people. Kids are such losers, man. Yeah. Kids can't take shit anymore. They're losers. I saw Power Rangers. This kid was crying. I'm like, "Are you for real, kid? Get me!" Like, come on.
Kid was freaking out in it. I'm like, why are you freaking out over the lack of scares? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's pretty bad.
What's interesting is that I'm going against the green here because I rank this one third because of my hatred of Willie Scott, who is up there with like Ray Don Chong and Commando was just the annoying, scary female character. And I was like, you're just there to be annoying. I hate annoying characters in movies. After you had Marion, who's this like strong, ass-kicking woman, and really like Indiana Jones really doesn't have a type. He just beds anybody then because she's like totally different to Marion. Can't stand her. I find her so annoying. Even when I was younger, I sometimes found Short Round annoying, but I've actually grown to like him now. And I've always wanted Short Round to show up again as an adult. I'd love to see like what happened. There's never any mention of like what happened to him after Temple of Doom. So I was like, how about we bring him back in some way, even just in a cameo role in like the fifth one. I would love to see Short Round come back.
That'd be awesome.
That would be cool. But I mean, the action scenes are good. I mean, Raiders will always be number one, but the action scenes in this are good. Mola Ram is a great villain. The score I love as well. But yeah, for me, I rank it as like 1, 3, 2, 4. That's what I do. So we'll move on to the third one. The Last Crusade, which maybe should have been The Last Crusade of Dr. Jones. And I'm going to start this one off, actually. This is my second favorite because it's got Sean Connery in it as his dad, which is funny because he's only like a couple of years older than Harrison Ford. He was only like, was it 9 years older than him or something like that? So I don't understand that he was his dad. You're like, okay. The whole Junior, I just love that. But and it does kind of feel like a retread of Raiders. Like you have another tank scene, which is just similar to like the truck scene in Raiders. I love the banter between father and son in this. I love how Indy's always looking for his dad's approval, and that really gets explored more in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which I have like the 3 seasons there, and the first season is awful. It's like he's like 9 or 10 years old. And I was like, who's this for? There's like no action in it. George Lucas apparently wanted it to be like educational. And I'm like, no, we want to see Indiana Jones punching people and using his whip and, being Indiana Jones. And then it's only really good whenever Sean Patrick Flannery comes in like season 2, I think. But interestingly enough, just what I remember in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, in that season 1, Paul Freeman is in it, but not as Belloc. He's playing somebody else. I'm like, what the hell? So, so that's a bit weird. And then I think Max von Sydow was in it as well at some point. So there were some good cast members in it, and but yeah, the show itself wasn't great. But yeah, so yeah, like I said, Last Crusade, you got the Nazis back again, so it's saying, but Indiana Jones at his best when he's fighting Nazis because they're just the best villains, and you can hate them. And like I said, there's some good banter back and forth between father and son. Love Sean Connery in it. But my issue with The Last Crusade is that it goes too much into farce territory. There's almost too much humor in it. Like Marcus is now a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
Where he wasn't before, he was intelligent, but now Marcus will get lost. Once got lost in his own museum. And he's kind of just become an idiot. So I just thought it was probably a deliberate move after people complained about how dark Temple of Doom was. They wanted to lighten the tone with Last Crusade, so they wanted to have some more laughs and everything. And I like the dark tone. That was not the issue for me. It was just Willie Scott, I found it. But it was nice to have Salah back in The Last Crusade as well, and the score was good as well. But yeah, love Connery. I love the relationship between the father and son, where it's not an easy relationship. Actually, the guy in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles who plays a young Sean Connery, his accent is spot on. The way he says "Junior," it's just exactly like Sean Connery would say it. So that's all I have to say. Anyway, I do enjoy it, and I love. That's just not all I have to say. I love the scene at the end, the various tests he has to go through, like spelling out Jehovah and the penitent man will pass, stepping onto the path. Yeah, love all that. And that's another line I quote is, "You have chosen poorly." Or wisely, so that's what I say all the time. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. So John Jervin, what do you think of Last Crusade?
Just going back to like what you said, this being a softer, lighter tone than the second one. This one's PG-13, where the second one was PG. So I find that kind of funny to this day.
Yeah.
But same thing. You said it all, Owen. Like you can't beat Sean Connery. I mean, and teaming those two up was like gold. And they just have a lot of great scenes together. Was it a lot like the first one? Yeah, but I was on board and I loved it. And again, Harrison Ford, he's one of my favorites. He's one of my all-time favorites. And like just watching it too, and I love the ending. He's like, we named the dog in the end. I mean, that's just the greatest line ever, So, I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, like for me, I go, like I said, 1 and 2, and then 3's right after it. But it's just that because, like I said, it is kind of like the first one, but even with Sean Connery in it, and then like the Nazis are back and everything, it's like I would have liked, like something different in that aspect. But again, it didn't kill it for me. But I did like the Holy Grail aspect. I'm like, ooh, this is interesting, because it's kind of like first we had the Ark, now it's like, ooh, now we're going after the Holy Grail. And it's like, and I like the ending where he's going through the tests and everything, and it's just got that kind of mysticism to it, and it's just especially when you're a kid watching this stuff, that's some cool shit that you're watching up there. And again, it just sparks with your imagination, and it just turns it on. And like I said, I can't say it enough. It's just adventure. It's just adventure, pure and simple, and it's just fun. It's just fun times. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's got something which I mentioned quite a lot. There's something that's missing in a lot of movies today is a sense of wonder, where you're like, oh wow, that's so cool. I love, I would love to be able to do that or whatever else. And very rarely these days you say that. You're like, oh, that sucks. Which is my opinion on most things. But, Stephen, your opinion?
So I saw this one twice in the theater, and it's funny because this one and Temple of Doom Temple of Doom went up and this one went down. And I loved it as a kid. Now that I'm older, I watch it a little bit differently. I don't think it follows the serial formula that the first two did. You can definitely even tell, like, this is where the cut would be, and it's like, next week, will they survive? Like, this one doesn't really follow that. It's just a movie, and it seems it's taken a departure from its roots, which I kind of feel now. The parts I do like, I still like. I love the beginning, right? Like through the on the train and all that, and with the lines and all that. I think that's great. Sean Connery, he can't do any wrong. I don't care what movie he's in. It's Sean Connery. I love the line where he's like, "You didn't bring the diary back." He's like, he looks at him. He's like, I should have given it to the Marx Brothers. I love that because I'm sort of thinking of what that movie with the Marx Brothers of, hey, I got the journal. What am I going to do with it? So I love that. You know, I like going through the catacombs in Italy because I just like the historical part of that. And the final trials are awesome. I still repeat to this day, only dependent man will pass. So, like people were like, well, what do I got to do? It's like only dependent man will pass. So, I love all of that. But it is too much of a retread. There's too much farce. Indiana Jones is mean at certain points for no reason. He snaps at Sally. He's like, I said 10 horses. Those are 12 horses. Can't you count? I'm like, who pissed in your cornflakes, man? Like, he's taken on that big giant guy in Raiders who, like, with the helicopter blade near him and all this stuff. But, like, he gets pissed off because Sala just brought more horses. Like, that's kind of weird. He just seems like grumpier. And I don't think the villains are particularly strong. I have no use for Ilsa. I didn't like Willie Scott, but I've grown to appreciate what they were trying to do with her, where she was like, when they're in that trap, and it's like, we got to rely on Willie Scott to get us out. It's like, oh my God, that sort of thought. Like she comes through, and that's really is. She has this strength about her that isn't obvious. Marion was a very obvious strength, whereas Willie was more of a, hey, if I'm pushed, I'm going to do the job. In this one, it's like, oh, let's just make the girl a villain. And I'm like, I don't care. Julian Glover, Julian Glover,
yeah.
Yeah. He's okay, but like, he's not present. He's just a guy. And he just picks the wrong chalice and dies. I'm like, okay. It's not even cool like what happened to Belloc in the first one. I do like the fact that he picked a chalice and he drank it, and it's like, hey, that's a simple carpenter's cup. I like that. Cool. So there's certain elements of it. I love the blimp for some reason. Like having the blimp there was cool. So there's a lot of cool elements, but definitely didn't feel like Indiana Jones, and definitely is my third favorite of the series. This is where it started to go down a bit for me. I mean, it went down a little bit, and then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull cratered. So that's me in Last Crusade.
Yeah. J-Man.
Okay, so I saw Last Crusade in the theater, of course. I wasn't a big fan. The thing is, I don't like comedy at the expense of the hero, and like I thought I was Indiana Jones. Like I wanted a hat. My friend Jason, his father has an Indiana Jones hat. It actually says Indiana Jones at the brim. Like, so as soon as Sean Connery came in, it's like Junior, and we named the dog Indiana. I'm like, oh, this sucks. I hate Sean Connery in this movie, like badly. I all he does is pick on Indiana Jones. I'm like, oh, and then it just I almost just checked out. Like it's okay. There's some good parts with it, like the adventure and all that. And I don't know. I wanted something new. It's like, this looked like Raiders. Even at that younger age, I was like, this is just like Raiders. Like, what is this? Like, I wanted every movie to be completely different from each other, where it's like, it's Indiana Jones is the same. He meets new guys that we haven't seen before. He's teamed up with new guys we haven't seen before. And I'm like, it just felt a bit lazy. I'm like, this is the same thing. The Grail. Okay, it's the Grail. And I'm like, what, is he going to be immortal now? Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's okay, but the serial stuff was definitely gone. I noticed that too. I'm like, there's no big cliffhanger parts. I didn't notice that as a kid, but I noticed it when I rewatched it. I love Sean Connery. I think he's great, but in this movie, he's just harping on Indy all the time. I'm like, and they're tied up together, and he's like, oh, you should, the diary. I'm like, well, Indiana Jones is trying to save you. Like, what's your problem? Like, literally every time he's angry at Indiana Jones, I'm defending Indiana Jones. I almost felt like he was attacking me. I don't know. I had this weird connection. I'm like, wow, I didn't do anything. So I don't know. I can admire the merits of the movie. Like, there's like good stuff or whatever going on. But yeah, I don't know. I just can't. It's like Indiana Jones was like the best. He always knew what to do. He was always, like he could always get out of a situation if he needed to. He had help sometimes. Okay, fine. But like, it's just I don't know. Sean Connery just like talks down to him the whole movie, like the whole movie. And I just wanted Indiana Jones to punch his dad and be like, Dad, shut your mouth. Like, what have you done? You haven't done shit. You've been sitting on your ass all this time. It's like, I friggin' got the Grail, or I've got the Ark, I got the stones. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't see Sean Connery do anything. I just saw him come in and make fun of the hero. I don't know. That's just my take. I know it's a hot take and people love this movie, and I think it's great. I bought it on VHS, and I bought it on DVD, and I bought it on Blu-ray. I'm gonna get it on 4K, just like all the other Indiana Jones movies. So I still like it. I still like it. I'm just, to me, it's like Raiders and Temple, and then it's like, like Last Crusade's here, and a lot of people. I had a big fight with another who's not on this thing because that's his favorite. One of my friends, that's his favorite more than Raiders and.
Oh, yeah, I know a few people.
Yeah, it's like their favorite, and I'm like, okay, I don't know, and it's not dark. It was too funny, and it's like, where's all the grossness? Like, I wanted to see melting stuff, bugs, and the rats were okay, I guess. The rats were okay. They're okay. It's still cool. I'm just being a little bit more negative, just because, just to be a little bit opposite everybody.
You also said that Indy always has a plan or whatever, but in Raiders he says, I don't know, I'm making this up as I go.
Yeah.
He's actually doing, and then he actually fails in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that's the thing, is that he doesn't win. The Ark ends up in Area 51 or wherever it is.
I know. So, it's kind of beyond his control. I don't know. It's just that this is a character who's like making fun of the other character, and it's like, why are you making fun of Indiana Jones? Like, to me, it just makes him seem after a certain point, like, yeah, maybe Indiana Jones is useless, and he doesn't prove that he's that great in this one either. It's just like, I don't know. That's just my take on it.
That's true. Sean, your thoughts?
I saw it in the theater too. I liked it when it came out. It's a new Indiana Jones. I remember those the trailers for it. Like, a teaser was behind the scenes, which I'd never seen before in a teaser, where it's like they're plunking down their chairs and it goes Indiana Jones 4 or whatever. That was cool. But yeah, when it came out, there's a lot of hype around. I remember the Coke commercial with the girl trying to choose between Diet Coke and some other thing, and choose wisely. Right? Yeah. There's a lot of hype. When it came out, I thought it was great, and the ending is awesome. All that stuff was great, and it sort of picks it up actually. But as I revisit over and over, one thing that's weird about this movie, it's ILM, but some of the special effects are not
terrible
for that time. Like when they're in the plane, and you can see matte lines around things. I'm like, this is what happened here. All the animatronic animals can kiss my ass. They're terrible. Like all the ones in that train are so. I don't know if they're supposed to look bad or they're supposed to look like plastic. I don't know. And there's not a lot of action. And it's funny because there was a documentary around that time where they're like, Spielberg had misgivings, and it's like Steven Spielberg's like, I watch it and there's not a lot of action, so we have to do reshoots. I'm like, no shit, dude. Like, I noticed this myself. But yeah, he admits there wasn't a lot going on. There's a lot of funny stuff. Marcus is completely ruined in this movie. It's funny because I dug this out. They made Further Adventures of Indiana Jones from 83 to 86 Marvel Comics. And I guess they figured it was going to be a good companion piece to Star Wars. And in that, Marcus is a badass. Like, he's kind of like a gentleman badass. Like, he's still like, a refined dude, but like, he's always got a gun on him, and you can rely on him in a pinch. He's great. And those are supposed to be canon, apparently, because I looked it up, and like, apparently in Lucasfilm has always said they're canon, but in Last Crusade, like, he's terrible. They're all like, they're all bad. And you notice it more and more. Some people, I guess, who grew up with it probably think it's great, but I don't think all those flaws capsize it for me. I think it's still part of the solid trilogy to me, but it's the lesser, and it's not the one I pop in the most to watch.
Yeah, it's funny. I only watch 1 and 3. Like, I never watched 2, and I probably never will watch 4 ever. But interesting enough, I didn't see The Last Crusade in the cinema. I remember I was living in Blainfield at the time. I was more interested because Batman was out that year, wasn't it? And I think Batman stole the thunder of it.
Yeah.
And I think nobody cared about Indiana Jones that year, because I know I didn't. And we eventually watched it. We like rented it out on VHS and watched it, and we enjoyed it. But I think also I will have a personal softness for it because Sean Connery is a Scot, and we're patriotic, and he's our boy. He's one of us. So I noticed that when last time I watched it, I was like, wow, these effects are terrible, and it's like the worst effects of the series until 4. But yeah, when you watch it now, it really takes you out of it, unfortunately.
And at the time, it's not like you're watching something from 1989 and saying, well, it's 1989 effects. No, at the time, they could have done a lot better than that. I've seen better before that movie. So I don't know. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, it was like a year or two later, Terminator 2 came out, and look at those visual effects.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess everything about The Last Crusade. Does anybody else have anything want to add on The Last Crusade?
Well, let me just say one thing that then I gotta cut out, so I won't be able to talk about
the
first one. But I just want to say, like, isn't it amazing how, like, what kind of franchise this is? Because we're talking about how much, like, the third one isn't as good, but like J-Man saying, I still bought it on VHS, I still bought it on DVD, I still bought it on Blu-ray, I still bought. You still buy them though, because it's still Indiana Jones. I mean, that speaks volumes about what kind of franchise this is. Even when it's not the greatest, you're still like, yeah, that's fine. It's Indiana Jones, and you always buy the latest edition of it, and that speaks a lot to Steven Spielberg, to Harrison Ford, and everybody that was involved with the franchise. It's just awesome. I mean, not many movies that you don't like that you'll buy on each. So and then just that's all I wanted to say. And I mean, like I said, this is it's my childhood. And this is Star Wars, and this is one of my first experiences going into the movies, and this is before I discovered like hardcore, actually, like Chuck Norris, and all that stuff. This is when this is I want to call it like my innocent time, because like these action movies were just everything to me, and like Superman, it was Superman, Star Wars, and Indiana Jones when I was growing up.
Amen. Yeah.
So with that, I think it's been nice. Have fun talking about number 4.
All right, thanks for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you Friday.
Yep, you will. I will be there, sir. All right,
see you then.
Take it easy.
Cheers.
And I wanted to point out too that like we're talking Indiana Jones versus Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Last Crusade versus any other garbage movie that came out, right? Like we're talking like Raiders and Temple of Doom are 10 out of 10 for me. Perfect films, changed my life and like formed me in a way that gave me an interest in history and archaeology. I literally watched them undig tombs on like History Channel. I will throw that on. You know what I mean? So when we're talking 10 out of 10, when I saw Last Crusade, I'm like, oh, this is maybe like a 7. You know what I mean? Like within the Indiana Jones films, right? If you say Last Crusade versus whatever else came out, you're like, well, yeah, obviously Last Crusade. That it was like my second favorite movie of the year after Batman. So I'm just talking about this versus Raiders, this versus Temple. That's all.
Yeah. Oh no, this is fun. Yeah, I like a bit of debate, so this is all good. But now we can come to. Let's see. Part 4.
Do not go in there.
That's basically what I think of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is, for me, it's unwatchable. I hate like nearly everything about it. It literally lost me as soon as the CG gophers came up in the opening scene. I was like, what is this? Are they going to talk? Are they going to fucking talk? I was waiting for the gophers to talk. And then you've got nuking the fridge.
Wow.
Oh my god. And then you got the stupid CG jungle chase. And then, oh my god, I hate everything about this movie. Does anybody have anything good to say about this movie before I rant?
We all went together. Did we all go, the three of us?
Yeah, we all went.
Oh, Steve wasn't with us?
No, I wasn't with you guys.
There's like 100 people with us, though, Jamie.
There was a lot, yeah. I mean, okay, so I don't despise this movie. To me, it's it's like, okay, you watch, you're like, yeah, that was okay, I guess. But like, there wasn't anything that stood out as being awesome, so it was either just okay or not that great. Whereas Last Crusade still had a lot of really good stuff and a couple of things I don't like. This had nothing really great and nothing that I loved. And it was just like I don't care about. I know they brought Marion Ravenwood back, but like why? It's like Shia LaBeouf. Why? I don't know. Why is the time period now? Because they have to age Harrison Ford was aged, so we have to make up the reason. I don't know. There's nothing else really going on. The CGI stuff. What's her face? Kate Blanchett. Like I don't care really. I don't care about her. I wasn't throwing up in the theater. I just walked around like, oh yeah, I don't know. The Crystal Skull. I think it's neat that they're doing like a Mayan thing. That's kind of cool. I like the idea that they're tackling other. I don't want to say mythologies or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like
science fiction,
cultures and things.
Other cultures. Like I was thinking, like, are they going to do a Viking thing? Like maybe some sort of Thor's hammer. Like he's going to go after the Mjolnir or something. Like I started to think like this is going to be really open concept. So I don't mind that it's like the Crystal Skull Mine thing, aliens thing, because that's a thing and that's fine. But it just kind of went a little bit too bonkers at the end. Where you're like, this is like becoming a bit like Star Wars. Like, what happened here? Like, I don't know. Just a little bit. This is a little bit too far. Dial it back. Yeah, I don't know. The jungle thing. Oh dear God. You're
also,
what is going on?
Like during that jungle chase, Marion is like driving along, and she's like smiling and laughing as he's like doing all this, and you're like, there's absolutely no sense of threat in this movie whatsoever. She's smiling and enjoying herself with this fucking god awful green screen background, which is never convincing. Oh my God! And then you got Shia LaBeouf swinging with monkeys.
That's so silly.
The monkeys are terrible too.
Yeah.
It's funny, they blew all their money on those prairie dogs because they look good. But the monkeys are terrible.
I mean, I like the cinematography. That's about it. Like I like this starts being not a at some point it's like this is not only not a good Indiana Jones film, this is just not a good film.
It's just a terrible movie. Yeah.
Like it's like Ray Livingston. What's his name? Ray
Winston.
Oh,
Winston.
Oh, Ray Winston. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh, like what was his character?
Changes decide. I'm like, what is going on? Marion Ravenwood coming back had no impact, and that was almost tragic. She might as well have been the wallpaper. Kate Blanchett, I'm like, is she in a different movie? Like, she thinks she's in a different movie. She thinks she's in a good movie because she's like, she's got the Russian accent and she's trying to be all commanding, but I'm like, it's not working. Shia LaBeouf is literally unwatchable. He is so annoying in this film. I can't even begin. First of all, Mutt Williams, I want to punch him as soon as I heard his name.
Yeah.
He literally acts just like an entitled, spoiled, hip brat. I cannot literally. I mean, when the fedora blew off Indiana Jones's hat and he went to pick, I was like, please God, have anything dare. Have the ark reopened, something happened and stop this. And luckily he didn't pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I was like, my God. But I think, and Sean will talk to this more, but there's no traps. There's nothing. There's no threat. There's zero. There's like, he's dream walking through Peru and he sees hey, and the Russians are coming. I'm like, what is going on? I don't understand anything. John Hurt.
John Hurt, why is he even in it? Yeah.
Marion's daffy dad. I'm like, and he was mentioned, Abner Raven, in the first one. I'm like, what a disappointment. This guy's like, he's comic relief. I'm like, and you got John Hurt. This is like insulting. It is just like by the end, the aliens leave, and I'm kind of like, just take the writer, director, and everyone else with you, and don't come back. Like it was awful.
Yeah. There's one scene I like in the entire movie, and which feels like Indiana Jones, and that's a motorbike chase, which is like halfway through, or whatever, and like they're driving the motorbike through a library and everything. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's not amazing, but it's the only thing that feels like Indiana Jones. Everything else just looks like a piss poor video game. And of all of them, like even the original 3 movies, none of them have dated the way this one has. I mean, it was dated even at the time. I was just watching it, and I was like, oh.
And reminding us that yes, Indiana Jones is old. Like he's like, oh, that used to not hurt, and blah blah blah. I'm like, all you're reminding me of is this movie should never have been made.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think this and I think Last Crusade and this movie are forced. Obviously they're made just to like try and do something else with Indy or like cash in and get more money. But this movie especially is a super forced movie. It's like, I don't know, let's do another one. How old is he? Fine, this is the 50s. Can't do Nazis anymore. Commies. Like it's it's kind of tragic in that right. I may or may not be looking at the City of the Gods script, which was written by Frank Darabont. That was the original version of this movie, and the aliens make sense in that. And there's no mutt. There's still a fridge though, but the whole alien thing was a lot like Last Crusade, and that there's a whole test that the alien puts on like Indy and these two other villains, and like giving them everything they want and everything, and he siphons off of that and becomes stronger and everything. And Indy has to kill that alien before it gets out into the world and takes advantage of everyone else. And so he does that. So he's a hero in that one, and it's not a situation where the aliens kill all the commie people and then like fly off with all the evidence. It's like, they just basically like take care of the situation themselves in that movie. I don't know. I hated this movie when we saw it in the theater. Like I despised it. And I saw it again when I got on Blu-ray, and it's not as bad when I watch on Blu-ray. I think because the shock is gone. But to me, there's no reason. It's sort of like, I mean, all of the reasons why I think this movie shouldn't have been made are the reasons why I think this next one shouldn't be made. It's okay to let this fade. Our generation loves it, and it continues to influence. I mean, I just told you that like that Tomb Raider movie is Raiders. It's like it's the same freaking thing, and no one will ever admit that. But I think it's a little sad looking into the future that honestly, and I think this is even in the States, but at least here, you can't find any of these movies to stream. It's not even on Disney Plus. The comics are all out of print. I've got out of print omnibuses of Further Adventures of Indiana Jones and the Dark Horse comics that you can't get anymore, and you can't find it digitally either, which is weird. So for whatever reason, it's getting harder and harder to find Indiana Jones. I think if you're a kid who grew up with parents that loved it, then you probably know it. But it's hard for you to find if you don't know anything about it. But back to part 4, it's okay. It's actionless. It's sort of trapless, as you said, Stephen. Every so often, it's more National Treasure than Indiana Jones, because there's a lot of traipsing around and lurking around different old areas and stuff. Last Crusade sort of starts that, but this one continues that. It's like there's a lot of lurking, but there's not a lot of punchy, and there's not a lot of actions and traps and to cleverly and resourcefully like evade. It's less and less Indiana Jones. So yeah, I'm kind of dreading this part 5. I don't think anyone wants this, but because of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I'll say one thing about the aliens. I don't mind that, because to me, if you like ancient, like weird history and stuff like that, Ancient Aliens is totally a part of that. Like, I mean, Chariots of the Gods and all that stuff, like it's totally a part of that world. So I'm fine with Indy dealing with something that has to do with like aliens that affected history somehow, and like looking after the Crystal Skull is a thing. Yeah. So that was cool. I just don't like the way they handled it. They had a better way, but Spielberg and Lucas's egos are way too big. So you got what you got, where the aliens just fly off and everything's fine.
Yeah, this is the Amy Farrah Fowler argument.
It is the alien.
This is the one that she's talking about.
And as I said before, it is
standing around
formula like copied to hell, to the point where they don't even know what they're doing anymore. It is still the formula of like there's someone Indy has to rescue, and that's why he's pulled into the mission. And then he finds the thing, but then at the end, there really is no reason for India to have been there, because the aliens just take it, it's like hold my beer, and they do everything themselves. So it's and I like the original script and that Indy does stuff at the end to save the world and to affect things, right? Yeah, he's working on his own agency and he's a hero. But in the movie, like, they spend a lot of money on all that crap, and I don't know why. I don't know if they thought they were being smarter than Darabont or something. I don't know, but it's dumber. It disrespects the franchise and it disrespects the character.
Mm-hmm. I read a script a few years ago to one which never got made, and I can't remember what it was called, but Noah's Ark was the MacGuffin, and I was like, that's more like it, because I like it to be more religious artifact. That's what it's supposed to be about. And what's funny is that the alien thing bothers me less, because judging by the news recently, that's probably the most realistic of all the stories. After we'll see what the Pentagon says on Friday with the UFO report they're about to release, because we know that they are in fact real and nobody seems to be caring. But not that I'm a conspiracy
I'm a lizard
theory
person.
The Galactic Federation is real.
The Dark Horse comics tread on a lot of the stuff that people wanted. Like, there's a Spirit of Destiny story, and there's an Atlantis story, and all that. And I always thought, just take one of those comics and adapt it. Like, you've got the media, right? Or those books. I never read those books. I'd love to, but they're
really good.
Cheap
Philosopher's
online,
Stone.
There's Philosopher's Stone.
Where is it? Yeah.
You mean not the
That's
Sorcerer's
really called.
Stone?
I thought this one is this? I can't remember, but this was involving Nazis again, but Indiana Jones and the Hollow Earth. And I love anything about the theory, and I was like, Hollow Earth or Shangri-La or something. I want to see something like that in Indiana Jones film. So I'm wondering what I'm interested with in this fifth one is that it's being filmed in Scotland. So probably, I think it's in the Highlands or something. So I'm wondering if it's going to go into some Celtic history or something like
Stonehenge.
that. Stonehenge, yeah. So I'm intrigued to see where they go with it and what the MacGuffin is. I hope it's something, a bit more belongs in a museum.
Stonehenge is good in this story, actually. It's a portal to another dimension. But anyway,
Well, I do have to say that Mads Mikkelsen's in it, and Mads Mikkelsen can not do any wrong. I mean, even when he's in a terrible movie, he's usually good. I saw the Clash of the Titans remake recently, and it wasn't as terrible as I remember it being, but still nowhere near as good as the original. Like, it's not even in the same area code. But I'm like, damn, Mads is even good in this, and this movie isn't that great. So I have hope for that. I don't know why we're bringing, we're digging him up again. Is Spielberg even directing this one?
No, James Mangold is directing it, and he directed Logan and 3:10 to Yuma. So I'm kind of intrigued because he's a good director. But
my God, that's it's all. I hate to say this, but it's like they got a real director. Spielberg.
Yeah, because I haven't liked a Spielberg film in years, to be honest. I mean, the last Spielberg film I liked was probably, Jurassic Park.
I think Spielberg was bored by Indiana Jones, to be honest. After, because he carries on and on about how he hates Temple of Doom and it's not his best work and all that stuff. It's like, well, dude, us who grew up with it, we love it, so shut the fuck up. Goddamn, and if you hate it, then why'd you do it? Like, what are you doing? And I think he said in the past too that he only does the Indiana Jones movies as a favor to his friend Lucas, as if to say, like, otherwise I wouldn't do it because I don't care about this anymore. But it's like, if you don't care, then all you're doing is a disservice to us, because it's like, it shows that you don't care. It's like the Crystal Skull shows that you don't give a crap, right? So it's good that he's stepping aside.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm intrigued. Obviously, I'll be there opening night. I'm going to probably see it maybe a couple of times, unless it's awful. But Mads Mikkelsen being in it, I was like, okay, that's definitely a plus point. And James Mangold, he tends to do more thoughtful movies. So I thought, okay, well, maybe... Well, I'm not expecting the serial type thing, but they might go for a more thoughtful version of Indy, where maybe he's going to be more of a mentor character, probably to a young female lead. And because I know there is one, I can't remember who it is. But I'm intrigued by it. But I mean, Harrison Ford is 78. and he literally just like damaged his shoulder during a fight scene
Yeah,
today.
just now. Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Harrison, you're badass and everything, but I do really want to see a 78-year-old having fight scenes with people, and we're supposed to believe that he could win in a fight. I mean, don't know.
He managed to do it in Blade Runner 2040.
That is true. He punched Ryan Gosling in the face for real.
Yeah. I mean,
but these serial guys have to go through a lot, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you guys watch my Crimson Ghost review or whatever. They're my God, it's like every room that these people enter gets obliterated. Like what? That's what I want to see, man.
Yeah.
I want to see big, huge muscle guys, and Indiana Jones punches them and beats, and then they're like, "You punch me a few times, that's nothing," and they beat the crap out of him, and then he beats them. Like, what happened to that?
Yeah.
I want freaking people beating the crap out of each other.
But then they're beating up like an 80-year-old.
Exactly. So I don't want that. He's just gonna shoot everybody. It'll be like Raiders. He'll shoot everybody that comes by.
Yeah.
Is he gonna be a hippie? Is Indiana Jones gonna do the peace? You think he'd be a hippie at this point? Or
I thought it was there's going to be some de-aging, right? Because I thought it was supposed to take place between the 30s and the 60s. So I guess it's an adventure that goes through the decades. And if that's the case, there might be Disney de-aging technology for the younger. And if they do it well, then everyone's going to ask, why couldn't you just do the whole movie like this?
Well, I mean, the problem though isn't just his face. So, like, have you heard Harrison Ford lately? He's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, did you swallow some razor blades? What the hell happened to you, man?
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, he's literally like the grumpy old man now. Like if Jack Lemmon was still alive, him and Harrison Ford be making movies together. Like, I don't know.
On the set of what was it? It was the first of this new trilogy, Force Awakens. Like the door to the Millennium Falcon fell on his ankle or something, broke it or something.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Time to retire, Harrison.
All these amazing Disney craftsmen. That never happened in the other Star Wars movies, assholes. No. Anyway.
They don't just destroy storylines, they destroy stuff. Like, we're using practical effects.
It's like,
Mr. Ford, are you okay?
Like Jabba's palace was all one giant practical effect. No one ever got injured. Like, what the hell's your Disney problem, man?
Well, I think the story is that with modern day Disney, even the actors aren't safe anymore. So
no,
yeah.
I think I've said before. I can't remember if it was to you guys. Maybe I was drunk, probably, but. I always wanted to see Dennis Quaid play Indiana Jones's long lost brother, because imagine it would just be and you'd just be like snarling at each other because it's like who's more gruff and growly sounding now. It just kind of reminded me of
like two zombies, man.
If Dennis Quaid showed up and started to have a conversation with Harrison Ford in this movie, I just burst out laughing. I just feel like I couldn't even understand every word. It'd be like every fifth word would be like grunting mostly.
No, but yeah, I mean the whole expanded universe of these books is always really cool, and the White Witch. This one was quite cool because I think some of this was in Scotland. Yeah, there's a little bit of Wicca and stuff like that, but there's like there's so many more interesting storylines they could have told and what they did, and I wish they'd actually done more movies. Like whenever Harrison Ford was in his prime, like it was such a long break between The Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I was like, couldn't you have done just like a couple more in the 90s or something? I would have loved to have seen more adventures of Indiana Jones. There were so many more things he could have done, like the Fountain of Youth. The Fountain of Youth was in one of them, wasn't it? And that was in the scripts.
Yeah.
That would work better.
It's like, why couldn't they do more with Luke Skywalker? Well, let's wait 16 years and and make a new trilogy.
Milk.
Yeah.
And then not do anything.
Yeah.
And kill a kid, or wanting to kill a kid, even though he saved his father. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyways,
we won't go into that here. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, good job, Disney. So we'll see if Disney manages to destroy Indiana Jones as well, but it was already destroyed really before they came along with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, so we'll see.
I think too, like what I was saying before about those movies, I suspect that those movies are still Paramount or something. Like they're not. It's sort of like the Star Wars movies before Disney are Lucasfilm still, or either Lucasfilm or like Fox distributing or something. Oh, actually, Fox is under Disney now, so
yeah.
But I don't think they're fully owned by Disney.
You're right.
Only the ones
Yeah.
they make, right? So yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, I just thought of that because I was like, wait a minute, they're not Disney movies. It's Paramount logo at the start, and yeah, there might be some kind of deal or whatever. But yeah, that's right. What about that?
Yeah, but this will be like maybe they've always wanted to make an Indiana Jones movie, so it'll be their own Indiana Jones, and from there they can thunderball it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they really had to, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I'd be surprised if younger people care. Because as I said, like I don't know how this legacy is carrying forward without parents at this point.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't really know the thinking behind it. I mean, nobody's thinking, oh, you know what, I really wish they'd do another Indiana Jones film just so we can see him again. I was like, yeah, I love the character. He's like my favorite character. It's like Indiana Jones and James Bond are my two favorite movie characters ever. And as much as I love Indiana Jones, I could live without seeing a new movie. I mean, judging how awful the last one was, then I'm not expecting this one to be much better. But I have hope because of the director, because James Mangold, he doesn't really use that much CGI in his movies. No, he directed the Wolverine.
Yes.
That's
the Wolverine and Logan. So he tends to prefer characters over big CG set pieces and whatever. So I'm hoping it can go back to feeling a bit more real. Although there's always a supernatural aspect, but I want to see the more practical effects and look less like a video game than Crystal Skull did. So yeah, we'll see what they do with it. But has anybody? I know we're not big gamers, but has anybody ever played any of the Indiana Jones video games?
Yep. Yeah.
The Nintendo ones, yeah.
There's one I had. Shit, I can't remember what it was called.
Infernal Machine or something? That one?
There's that one. No, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. And I had that. It was super hard. In fact, I just stopped playing it. I couldn't get past this one level, and I was like, and that was it. And I've never played it again since. That was it. But yeah, I remember that was quite cool.
Does anyone remember the Harrison Ford's appearance on Chronicles of Young Indiana Jones?
Yes.
No.
Where it was a terrible episode, but it's about the birth of the blues. So still get Harrison Ford. But anyway, Harrison Ford is with some Native Indian dude, and they're being chased. I can't remember why. And I remember at the time when I was a kid, I was excited. I was like, "Oh, this is the Indiana Jones I want to see. This is awesome!" And they played the theme. It seemed more action. When I found it on YouTube a few years ago and watched it, I was like, "Wow, this is terrible. It's cheap television crap." And he has a beard in it. I think it's the only time he's worn a beard as Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And towards the end, the bad guys come into his cabin or whatever, and then he punches a few of them, and they leave. I can't remember why. And then he plays like a flute or something, and it causes an avalanche or something like that. I can't. It's really dumb. And then they play the Indiana Jones music, and I'm like, oh, the Indiana Jones music. That's awesome. So yeah, it's like I'm a cheap pop when it comes to Indiana Jones music.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear. Yeah.
But yeah, it was weird. I think it was the only time he ever appeared on that show.
It is, yeah.
And they blew a weird story on him. It's just like, you're playing a flute, see, and you're in the cabin in the woods, and it's snowing, see, and it's okay, sure, and you have a beard for no reason. Like, anyway.
I mean, if you survived a Star Wars holiday special, you can survive anything, right?
Yeah. He looks like he's thinking about something else in that holiday special.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have all the whole box sets there of the 3 Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and I haven't even finished them. I stopped halfway through season 1. I haven't even got to the Sean Patrick Flannery episode yet, because Daniel Craig is in those episodes, I think. So once again, we have James Bond and Indiana Jones on screen again. So I will get around to watching it at some point. I remember watching it back in the day, but it never really felt like Indiana Jones,
no.
And that was the thing. You're like, well, why is the music not in it? And why is nothing happening?
There's one part in the pilot I remember when I was like, oh, now it's getting like Indiana Jones, where he's fighting some dude and the guy's in a trench with like a Gatling gun and shooting the Gatling gun at Indy. and it felt like action packed, like the movies. I was like, oh my god, this is great. And after that, they never did that again. It was all just comedy hijinks. He meets up with some historical figure.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like Indiana Jones, and I was like, I know you're using the name blatantly, but I expect a few things out of my Indiana Jones, and you're not checking these.
And this ain't it.
Yeah.
Artifacts, traps, action. Like, I don't understand why Indiana Jones, like a lot of movie characters, is so easy. Oh my god, it's so easy. You just have a round table, and you're like, okay, we need an artifact. Go, Spear of Destiny. There. Okay, good. We're doing it. Okay, we need 5 traps. Right. That's it. Or 5 little set pieces of action. Done. Next movie, and just work the story out later. Look, Indiana Jones is not a super depth character where there's a lot of like heart and soul to this guy, and we have to dig deep and find out what makes him tick. It's like, look, he's an action hero. He gets the job done. Get that. You could write. You just need 4 or 5 action pieces with 1 artifact, and just do like a page per, and you could have 20 movies ready to go, and just pick one and be like, well, let's do this one.
Yeah,
it's so easy.
But yet they still managed to get it wrong. And then whenever you read some of the rejected scripts, you're like, okay, any of these are better than what we got with Crystal Skulls, or what were people thinking? Even Steven Spielberg at the time, I remember, said that he thought Crystal Skull was a bad idea. He said bringing aliens into it, but George Lucas was like, oh, everybody will like it, it'll be great. Yeah, and you're just like, shut up, George, you created Jar Jar Binks. Okay, let's look.
George has been making some bad choices for a while.
Yeah, everyone says that Disney destroyed Star Wars, and I was like, George did it before.
He was doing a good job of it before.
I mean, Spielberg made War Horse, so he should talk, because that movie, like I said, I told Jay, man, like, this is my review. It really is about the horse. I had to quit after 30 minutes because I'm like, I can't watch this. This is about the horse. Like, forget it. I can't.
Does the horse talk?
It's like the history of the horse. Like, he was bought here, and he's a plow horse. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it's like, you can do more. I'm like, quick.
Does the horse have a montage where he gets better? It's like he's like, you need a montage, and the horse is like jumping, and you're like,
I honestly feel he did without the music.
Oh my god!
I just want to bring it back to Stallone, actually. So when Indy 4 came out, I told you, J man, I was like, I don't get it. Like, Stallone made Rocky Balboa 2 years before that movie, before Indy 4. And the year that Indy 4 came out, he released Rambo 4. And I was like, my God, with those 2 movies, Stallone showed he knew what made those movies work.
Yeah.
He knew what made the franchise tick. He revisited them successfully. Never mind Last Blood, but he revisited them successfully, right? And the thing was, with Indy 4, I just felt like Spielberg and Lucas just didn't know. Maybe Raiders was a fluke, like they just didn't understand what Indiana Jones was about, and that movie's so damning for that case. It's like the prequels are damning for Lucas, right? For Star Wars, like, do you really know what Star Wars was? Like, I know you had a lot of help making those movies, but it's like maybe that's the problem, that you tried to make them alone and didn't really know what Star Wars was. And it's the same thing with Indy 4. It's like, did you know what the action and adventure and romance of Raiders and Temple were about? Did you know how to make them, or were they just a mistake? Because how is Stallone like reviving 2 franchises and you can't do the one? It's weird. Yeah,
well, I think Lucas. We've said this before, but Lucas is a master storyteller. He's just not a filmmaker. He doesn't understand.
He's an ideas man. He can look at some ideas, someone else to write it.
Because if you sit down and actually watch the story to the prequels and try and ignore all the terrible stuff, it's hard. The story is pretty good. Like when you're sitting there, you're like, Palpatine is a bastard. Like, what the hell? Like, the way he manipulates everyone, I'm like, this is gold. And if you think about what's happening in the story, you're like, this is pretty good. Unfortunately, how it's executed is not very good.
Yeah.
And Spielberg, unfortunately, the unfortunate thing was Schindler's List. I think Schindler's List and just not getting the recognition for his earlier films. I mean, they were classic, but like he seems to be the sort of guy, from what I've seen in the interviews and that, where he wants the awards, right? And his movies didn't get them in the original part. They were very pleasing. He made a lot of money off them. They were box office hits, except for 1941. But like, he didn't get that. And I think that bothered him. And that's when you start to see him make The Color Purple and, Always.
The Prestige pictures.
Yeah. And then like he got Schindler's List. He's like, oh, I want to do this now. And then he had a long period where he made nonsense.
Yeah, he just makes these serious war movies or whatever. Yeah. I'm like, I don't care. I want fun Spielberg back again.
Yeah, I mean, we got it a bit with Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Minority Report was good, and shockingly, Bridge of Spies was really good, which I didn't see happening at all. But like, he makes terrible. He also makes terrible movies. I have no interest in West Side Story. Like,
no, never. Definitely, yeah. Okay, I don't think I have anything else to add. Anybody else have anything else they want to say indie related? Will indie out.
Make a cartoon or an animated thing or something.
Yeah,
well, what's the problem with doing that? You know?
We'll see. Yeah, I would. I'm going to be honest. If they actually did recast the role, I wouldn't be that bothered. It depends who they would cast it as. I love the character so much, and I kind of see it sort of like James Bond that way, where you could have somebody else play it, contrary to what Harrison Ford says. I mean, we already had River Phoenix play him as young, and then we had Sean Patrick Flannery play him young. So, maybe not Chris Pratt, because whenever Chris Pratt is just, you see Chris Pratt being Chris Pratt. So I don't know, but yeah. Or they could just leave it. Which I think they probably just leave it and stop ruining it for more than they already have, and we'll just stick with the original trilogy and that other movie we won't speak of. So, all right, well, I think that's about it. Well, thank you very much, chaps, as always, for joining us and for all the various comments we didn't get. But anyway, we shall see you all on Friday night for our chat.
And you're coming tomorrow, though, right?
Yes, and tomorrow night, yes, I will be joining J-Man on his channel, and we're going to be talking about video game movie adaptations. So that's going to be fun. So jump over to J-Man's channel, like and subscribe there, and like and subscribe this channel too. So we'll do more of this. And anyone interested, we'll see you tomorrow night, and we'll see you Friday night. I have some really cool ideas for our chat on Friday night. Awesome. So we shall see you then. Thanks, guys.
Take care.